what's up, Zilla Nation, and welcome back to the channel. I know, before you even try to hurt me, where have I been? It's been about 30 days. I've been more so consistent on my main channel, which is a gaming channel right here. So if y'all don't see me on this channel a lot, it's because I am on my other channel. And if y'all want to see more content on this type of channel, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment, because just the engagement on these videos show me that you guys want to see more of me reacting to stuff on this channel. But forget about all of the statistics and all that stuff. Let's get into the actual video that we are doing today. The video that we will be watching today is something called Comparison of the Most Painful Punishments. Do you understand? Back in the day, they had some of the most craziest punishments. And this is a way that we can kind of like up our knowledge with history and at the same time enjoy ourselves watching a video. So get your popcorn and let's get some pain inside of us.
What are you even talking about, bro?
Can you shut up? Where are you even at?
I'm in your head, stupid. This proves right here that you are absolutely crazy.
I'm sorry guys if y'all heard that guy. So let's start.
You said something wrong about the church in the Middle Ages. So
right.
The Inquisition is after you now. They've used a leather strap to secure a device that looks like a two-way fork with two sharp points on your neck. One of its sides is pushing against your sternum and the other against your chin. At first, you tried to keep your head up to lessen the pain, but you couldn't stay like this for long. The so-called heretic's fork wasn't deadly, but made the victim suffer from the tiniest move. However, on the scale of pain based on scientific research...
Hold on. And why the freak is Shorty actually trying out the torture method? Like, why are you trying it out? No, thank you.
This kind of suffering
I'm sorry.
only
I had to let that be known.
Points out of 140. In this video, you'll find out about the worst kind of torture in the history of humankind. So, viewer discretion is advised.
Viewer discretion is
advised.
advised.
A few times in your life been subjected to one of the less obvious kinds of torture. It's just that the executioner wasn't persistent enough when tickling you.
Tickling?
In ancient China, this was the primary method of punishing delinquents from noble families, since tickles didn't leave any traces of torture on the body.
What?
And the victim was able to recover quite fast if the procedure didn't go too far.
Dying from tickling?
In European countries, goats were employed as a torture device. The culprit was tied up, and salty water was poured on their feet to make the animal lick them. What's so bad about that, you might ask? It's just that there's an incredible number of nerve endings in the feet, and the goat's rough tongue would irritate them quite a lot. So, after a few hours, the tickling starts inducing not just laughter, but also painful muscle contractions. You lose virtually all control over your body, which causes extreme stress, anxiety, and exhaustion.
And that is literally just from tickling somebody. You can actually harm somebody by tickling them. And y'all wonder why I don't like being tickled. If you tickle me, I have an excuse to shoot you because you're trying to kill me, right?
Nigga, no.
Maybe I'm taking it too far. I'm taking it too far?
Yes!
Okay, my fault. My fault. I was just making sure.
Moreover, the nerve endings responsible for reacting to tickles also signalize pain. It's just that if we're being tickled for fun, and for a short time, our reaction to stress doesn't go beyond laughter and light sensations in the body. However, if done for hours
of tickling,
it's such crazy overload that the lightest touch causes unbearable physical pain. Now imagine that it's not your feet being tickled, it's your private parts.
Oh no!
In India,
you're tickling my privates? You're tickling my pee-pee? This is where I leave the chat, okay? You're tickling my pee-pee. It's many things you can tickle, but you choose to tickle the pee-pee? You freaky motherfucker. Don't tickle my pee-pee because it might tickle you back. I'm sorry. Get into the video.
Interrogation of criminals was accompanied by placing a small bug on the culprit's genitals and covering the insect with a walnut shell so that it didn't escape. The constant irritation of super sensitive areas caused by the bug's movements made the torture unbearable very quickly.
That's a freaky ass torture.
The executioners got any confession they wanted. Eventually, tickle torture would result in death by asphyxiation if the victim developed a throat spasm caused by uncontrollable laughter.
Wow.
Other possible outcomes were cardiac arrest or a brain aneurysm. provoked by serious stress.
That is
Yet on the pain
crazy.
scale, tickle torture got only 32 points since the suffering it brought was mostly psychological.
Only 32?
This is very similar to the next kind of torture, the Chinese water torture.
Chinese water torture.
At first, the
What's
person
that?
was immobilized, and then cold water would slowly drip onto their face or head. Gradually, the constant skin irritation caused by the drops and splashes would make the nervous system hypersensitive. The inability to move and the wait for the next drop would literally start driving the person insane.
Notice that these torture methods are like it's like tedious. It's like something that happens over time. So a small drop of water landing on your face is probably like okay if you were to do it one time. But if you are doing that for probably about 15 hours, one small drop of water landing on your face, could that really do some damage to you like that? Like I would be sitting there like yum, 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 yum. I would be enjoying that a little bit.
Maybe you've even seen this torture in movies. Here's the paradox though. There's no proof that it was ever used in China. This kind of torture was first described by an Italian lawyer on the cusp of the 16th century.
Whoa.
In the mid-18th century, German and French doctors attempted to use this method to cure mental disorders. Moreover, the very term
crazy.
Chinese water torture came into active use owing to a trick by the legendary Harry Houdini.
Houdini?
Does the water drop torture actually work?
Let's see.
Since it can look harmless at first glance, a few bloggers have dared to try it out themselves. The water drop torture was also tested by the Mythbusters.
What?
All participants knew that
Why are niggas trying the torture method? Like, are we really okay in the brain? Like, what is wrong with you? You want to lay down on a table and let drops of water just leak in your face for hours for research? Like, do you know people was dying from that? Like, come on, bro. Get it together.
they were actually perfectly safe and could be freed at any moment. Yet everyone went through a hellish experience. At first, the experimenters suffered from cold, thirst, psychological tension, and physical discomfort. Then, their entire bodies started aching, and breathing problems arose. It all ended in a panic and desperate pleas to be released.
That is the worst.
In addition,
Wow.
after this episode,
From
the
just water?
Mythbusters received an anonymous letter whose authors reportedly found out that the Chinese water torture may cause mental issues that persist for 20 hours.
Look at her. She crying.
So on the pain scale, the water drop torture received 40 points.
It's
and a
more
huge
than that?
question as to whether it was actually used in
That's
practice.
actually crazy.
At least because it was
That's
replaced
actually
by
crazy.
much
It's
crueler
more
kinds of
than
water
a tickling shit.
One of them was the Swedish drink.
Swedish
This
drink?
name was invented by the Germans. During the 30 Years' War, they became victims of the Swedish army servicemen, mercenaries, or marauders. This method of torture went as follows. Through a funnel, the perpetrators would pour buckets of the most disgusting liquids imaginable into the victim's throat.
Okay, so...
They used everything from urine and filth to manure and feces. This was the
Ew!
Swedes' way of torturing the civilians.
So they was dumping shit inside of the little mouth thing? Yes! Ew! That is disgusting, bro. That is disgusting, bro. Like, I feel like that torture would be worse than anything. If you are dumping manure inside of something that goes in your mouth, you can die from plenty of things. Like, from the shit. You could die from eating shit. Yes. All the germs and everything inside there, you could die from that. You can die from too much water. This is like top tier torture right here. 100%.
To give up their money or food. Not
Okay.
only did the victims feel disgust and humiliation from being subjected to the Swedish drink, they also contracted deadly diseases.
Right,
Furthermore,
see?
their stomachs stretched, causing horrific pain. The
Oh,
perpetrators
man.
would often use wooden planks to put pressure on the victim's bloated belly or hit it with sticks to deepen the suffering. So, on the pain scale, the Swedish drink got 46
46?
points out of the
Nigga, put
possible
that at 100.
140. Very often, one kind of torture ranged from public humiliation, accompanied by intense discomfort, to a death punishment with unbearable suffering. One of such hellish inventions was
You
the
must have
cane.
did some bad shit to get
It's
that
a large
one.
board consisting
What was
of
that
two
one?
halves.
Let's-
Hellish inventions was the cane.
King.
It's a large board consisting of two halves
I think
with
I've
a
seen
hole
this
between
one.
them. used to keep the device on a person's neck. The cane wasn't secured in any way, so the
Okay.
culprit had to support the board with their hands and balance it while walking.
Oh
To
no, that's
intensify
torture.
the
That's
punishment,
terrible.
the person in a cane could also be chained, stopping them from ever sitting down. Moreover, the cane's parameters would change according to the severity of the punishment. It could weigh anywhere from 9 to 15 kilograms and have a
Oh,
square,
shit.
rectangular, or disproportionate irregular shape. Sometimes they
How can
were
that
even
kill you,
double
though?
or triple. Often a cane would be so large that the victim would be unable to touch their face to eat or drink. If they weren't helped by those who cared, the victim would die a slow death of hunger and thirst. Yet
Okay,
the cane
that's
was also
pretty brutal.
used as an execution device. The convict was placed inside a tall cage made specifically for this purpose. A cane would be secured above. Then, a prop would be taken from under the victim's feet. They would slowly be strangled with the board on their neck. That's how people were executed in China as recently as 1900, suffering excruciating pain. On the pain scale, cane torture sits at 60.
The cane sounds really bad. So imagine somebody just putting like a wooden board on your neck and on your hands, right? And then you're standing on a wooden board. They snatch it from under you. And only thing you have to kind of like hold you up is your jawbone, bro. You're breaking your jaw and everything, bro. That is torture, yo. 100%.
2 points.
That's
However,
crazy.
even this horror is far from being the worst thing people ever came
Far
up
from
with.
being the worst, that's
Europeans
kind of
during the
bad.
Middle Ages were especially creative in their acts of cruelty. It was then that they invented and actively used a contraption called the Judas cradle.
Judas cradle.
It's a spiky wooden or metal
shit.
pyramid secured
Nah.
on a support with a special clamp over it.
That's
First,
ridiculous.
The victim's arms and legs were tied, and then
No.
their trunk was secured with a metal ring attached to the ceiling or the wall
No.
with ropes. After this, the person was slowly seated on the pyramid's sharp point.
No!
I won't go into the horrific anatomical details, since it's clear anyway that the process caused unbearable pain. Moreover,
Oh!
such torture could go on for
Number one. That's number one. Anything on an ass is number one.
days. If the executioners wanted to receive a confession
that's crazy,
or
yo.
other information, but the victim
I'm
remained
snitching.
silent, they
Billy
tied
did
weights
that
to their
shit.
arms and
He
legs,
did it.
causing the pyramid edges to gnaw at the poor person's body even more. As if that wasn't enough, the Judas cradle was never cleaned, so it became the breeding ground for deadly bacteria.
No.
So, even if the victims managed to survive, they often died of infections. At any rate, they remained scarred physically and psychologically for the rest of their lives.
That's crazy.
That's why the Judas cradle received 79 points
79
on the pain
is
scale,
low
crossing
balling.
the midpoint.
Put that shit at
However,
85.
the first device to go beyond 100 in our list is the oubliette. It's a
Oubliette.
horizontal tunnel with the only way out in the form of a grated opening above, used as a dungeon.
So it's like a
It was
dungeon.
so narrow that the prisoners couldn't
dungeon?
even sit down. Moreover, oubliettes were built right there in the castle so that the victims could hear human voices and smell the food, causing them even more psychological suffering. Yet, the real torture was the fact that the prisoners were literally forgotten about in these
So
holes.
they had to
They
stand
slowly
up.
died of thirst, hunger, exhaustion, and infections. Compared to this, a Judas cradle execution was a swift way to relieve one's suffering. The oubliette is a kind of immurement, which has been practiced since
That's
ancient
crazy.
times on all continents. In the Roman Empire, the most influential Vestals who had broken their virginity pledge were sentenced to death. It was against the law to shed their blood, though. So they were immured alive, fated for a slow, desperate death.
That
If
is
you
crazy.
think this insane practice remained in days past, you're wrong. In Mongolia, this barbaric execution method was still in use until at least 1913.
This
So
is
immurement
crazy.
in its different variations
I mean,
receives
that-
108 points on the pain scale.
Yeah, I can
But what
understand
if
that.
you're not alone in this closed space? Then it's an entirely different kind of punishment.
Huh?
Rat torture.
Rat
As far
torture.
back as in the 1st century AD, the cruelest
Cut that shit out right now, bro. Cut that shit out right now. I'm scared of shit of rats. I'm gonna tell y'all a quick story, right? I used to live in the hood. So I used to live in the hood, right? And this was my first time ever like encountering a rat, right? Sitting down, I'm chilling, watching TV, chilling, minding my business. My mom is upstairs, my sister upstairs, and my younger brother, he's in his room upstairs as well. I'm down in the living room, And I know I see something from the corner of my eye, but I'm like, okay, I didn't see it. Like, I was like, okay, I don't really see much, but I saw something moving from like my peripheral. So I turn around, right? Mind you, this rat, like, I'm used to seeing mice. Like, I'm cool with the mice. Like, hey, what's up, Ratatouille? What's good? We chilling. We cool as a motherfucker. Mice sitting over there like this. Hey, mice cool with me. And then I see a rat. I'm thinking that this is either a mouse ate a fucking human being, or like I am hallucinating right now. I must have been on crack or something. When I seen that big motherfucker drag his body across the floor, and when I screamed, I tell you, I screamed, he jumped. That big ass rat jumped like he was a cat or something. Listen, I told my mom about that. Guess what? My mom moved out of the house the next day. We in the hood. How you move out of the house that fast, Mom? How do you even afford that? You couldn't even get my Xbox 360.
Emperor in the history of the Roman Empire, Nero,
Nero.
used rats to torture those who fell out of favor.
No.
They say he put the victim into a barrel with hungry rats who quickly
No.
ate the person alive. In Italy,
No.
they made criminals
Get
wear
eaten
wide
alive by
pants,
rats?
which were first tied around the ankles and then filled with rodents. Any
No.
ideas as to which body parts suffered the most and how painful it was? However, medieval torturers took it even further. They
Even
tied the
further?
victims down to immobilize them, then placed a bottomless cage on their abdomens and filled it with rats. Then they
No.
put hot wood coal on the grates, and the rats became unbearably hot. First, they tried gnawing at the cage in desperate attempts to escape. Later, though, the rats realized they were standing on a soft human body and started eating their way out.
No.
Sometimes the cage was put on the victim's head
No.
or other body parts.
That's
I'll let your
crazy.
imagination fill in
No.
the details. The most horrible thing is probably the fact that in South American countries, rat torture was in use until the 1980s. It received 112 points on the pain scale. It
That.
would seem that there's nothing worse than this.
Yeah. Right.
But before we get to the most horrifying tortures that scored the maximum of 140
Maximum?
points,
Oh, we about
there
to get to the
are
juicy
still
ones,
two more
y'all.
devices. The first of which is the rack.
Rack.
This is another deadly invention of the Middle Ages. It looked like a wooden frame with rollers on both ends. The person's limbs were tied to them, and when the torturers would start turning the rollers, the victim's arms and legs would stretch in different directions. This caused unbearable pain due to joint displacement,
Yo.
muscle and ligament ruptures, and, in the most horrific cases, even bone fractures. The executioners could torture the victim like this for hours or even days to beat the confession or the necessary information out of them. Sometimes, a
That is
specifically
crazy.
trained person would supervise the victim's condition to keep them conscious and alive before a specific time.
That is crazy.
It's unsurprising that just threatening someone to send them to the rack would often be enough to obtain the necessary information. This horrible type of torture
I would
received
tell him everything.
116 points on the pain scale.
Yeah.
However, citizens of ancient
It
Greece
gets worse.
managed to outperform
It gets
even
worse.
the cruelty of medieval European torturers, being the creators of one of history's most terrifying torture devices, the Brazen Bull.
Brazen Bull.
According to stories, it
That
was
now-
built by
that
an
last
Athenian
one was
named
tough.
Perilos as a commission for a Sicilian tyrant,
Okay.
Phalaris, in the 16th century BC. It was a hollow copper statue of a bull with a hatch on its side. A
Oh,
person would be
shit.
pushed inside. The hatch would be shut.
Oh.
The torturers would start a fire under the bull's belly.
Oh.
Furthermore, the statue's nostril structure made the victim's scream sound like the bull's bellow. Yet this barbarism was apparently not enough. So after the execution,
Oh
the
my
victim's bones were
goodness.
used to make jewelry to then be sold on markets. The inventor of this hellish machine realized very quickly that doing business with tyrants was a bad idea, since the first person Phalaris tried out the brazen bull on was Perilos himself. First, the man's skin started burning in the places where it touched the metal.
Oh
Then,
my
the hot
gosh.
air gradually burned his airways and lungs. He went on to slowly cook alive before choking to death or going unconscious. Before
Whoa!
Perlos went through the agony
That should be
reached
140.
130 points. on the pain
130
scale.
is worse than
Even
that?
This horror, though, won't compare to the fate of those sentenced to Ling Chi.
Ling Chi. To be put inside of a bowl, just heated up and cooked alive, that is brutal. And to be honest, that is a load of bullshit. Sorry. I just felt like I needed to say that. I apologize.
Definitely one of the most barbaric punishments in humanity's entire history. And
What?
it hails from Asia. It was used in China, Vietnam, and Korea right until the early 20th century.
Glad I live
to
in
punish
Maryland.
perpetrators of the most heinous crimes
sorry.
like mass murder and high treason, as well as to eradicate the emperor's personal enemies. It comes as no surprise, since the victim would be tied to a pole in a crowded space to turn the execution into public humiliation.
That is crazy.
Then, a few torturers would slowly cut pieces of flesh out of the convict's arms, legs, and chest. We know from
What?
historical records that during Ling Chi, the victim would suffer from 100 to 3,000 wounds. That's why
What?
this torture is also dubbed death by 1,000 cuts. Although the experts state that with such wounds, a person would most likely die within 20 minutes. Sometimes the families of the
That's
victims would bribe the
crazy.
executioners to inflict a deadly wound right away. This wouldn't remove the victim's physical pain, but it's worth remembering that for the Chinese, Ling Chi was also a spiritual punishment. According to their beliefs, this disfigurement of the body wouldn't allow the victim to be whole and healthy in the afterlife.
That's crazy,
This horrific
bro.
execution method officially remained in use in China until 1905. This type of torture received the most points on the pain scale, 140. I told you
Damn.
all this exclusively for educational purposes and to tickle your nerves. But I hope it didn't reach torture level. If you
I'm not gonna hold you. You did more than tickle my fucking nerves. You almost made me fucking shit myself. I'm glad I live in Maryland. I'm sorry, because those torture methods had to be absolutely the worst. The worst shit I've ever seen. Death by tickling, I never heard of anything like that. Death by water drops, yo, it's really millions of ways to die. So guys, in the comment section, let's have a conversation on what do we think is the worst torture of everything we've seen in this video. Zilla Nation, I will see you in the next video. I love you guys.
Trezilla, we gotta get the bag. Trezilla, we gotta get the cash. Late nights grinding to the back. Boss fight down, yeah, we moving fast. Trezilla, well, yeah, the squad stay lit. Every level up, you know we legit. Screens go dark, but the grind don't quit. Hit that foul, hit that light, don't miss. Trezilla, we gotta get the bag. Trezilla, we gotta